All right, so welcome to chapter 4. So we're actually going to start talking about technical work now. Reconnaissance is what we're going to be talking about today, and it's one of the most important phases of the entire life cycle. If you fail to find an open window here, you might not be able to climb through it later. So we're going to really start focusing on our roadmap here. We're going to focus on the passive gathering today. We will cover the core principles of OSINT techniques, DNS analysis, and web analysis. So by the end of this, you should be able to map out a company's entire digital footprint without sending a single packet to their servers. So we need to have a different mindset for here. We're going to be a digital detective today, okay? So we need to make sure that we're building a case, but our goal is zero contact. We're gathering intelligence, but we must not alert the target that we're watching. So we're building a dossier, right? The file of facts that will help guide our active attacks later. And the better we do at this job at this stage, the better our future attacks are going to be. So it's always going to start with our reconnaissance phase, and we're going to start with passive reconnaissance for sure. Principle of passive reconnaissance: do not touch the target. Passive means you are invisible. You interact with public servers like Google or LinkedIn, not the client's servers. Do not touch their servers. Okay? So, more about OSINT. OSINT is the engine of recon. It stands for open source intelligence. You just heard me say it. But we use it. We use it different things like search engines, social media, government records. And we're looking for technical assets. We're looking for IP ranges, human assets like email addresses. We're looking for a whole bunch of information so we can help build a profile for the company. Now we have three main buckets for OSINT. We have advanced searching, which we like to call Google dorking. We have social media profiling, and then public records gathering. We will also use a lot of tools to automate this, but you need to understand the manual methods first before we use the automated tools. So Google is the most powerful hacking tool in the world if you know how to ask it the right question. Google Dorking uses advanced operator to, well, filter results. We're not just looking for companies' homepages, we're looking for their mistakes. For example, we may be looking for different operators, and these are very highly tested on the Pentest exam, just so you guys know. So make sure that you know how to do basic Google dorking. I remember even having a few questions myself on the exam that really hits hard on, hey, do you know how to Google dork? And so we might be looking for sensitive files, like file type of PDF, or maybe we're looking for Excel spreadsheets and XLS. We're looking for confidential documents that accidentally got indexed, maybe customer lists or employee lists or payroll records, or just something that has sensitive information that shouldn't have ever got out but did. We might be looking for logging URLs because we might want to find other doors, like maybe to their admin panels or their web pages. A lot of sites won't put a link on their homepage for their admin panel, but they might still be there. So could we find them by Google dorking it? Or can we find some of the directory listings? Can we find indexes of their websites that exposes different directories or files that the admins forgot to turn off, exposing all the files from the server? We gotta be very careful about this because it's very easy to find just by using Google. Now we can move on to the social media profiling because computers are technically hard to hack, but people are easy. We profile employees to set up social engineering attacks all the time. And I mean, this is how the MGM got hacked just a few months ago, as of today. They were able to get social engineer attack. Why should I have to attack a password when I can call somebody and they'll give me the password over the phone? Now, the different platforms that we would use for this, because remember, we're doing OSINT right now. We're not physically talking to the people. That's active reconnaissance. We're doing passive. So they don't want to know that we're there. So we're going to use the platforms like LinkedIn, because LinkedIn itself may give us the org chart or technology they use. They might use X, give us personal interest or complaints. If an admin tweets, "I hate the new Cisco firewall," we now know they use Cisco, which most people do anyway. We can look at the job board. So HR leaks a lot of information because departments are notorious for this. They post job descriptions lists that exact versions of software and hardware. We're hiring a Palo Alto firewall expert. Well, now I know exactly what firewall to prepare our exploits for. That's why job postings are gold mines for attackers. GitHub is another location. Developers are lazy. They often accidentally upload API keys, passwords, or even internal IP addresses to the public GitHub repositories. So we can search the company name plus some keywords like passwords, key, config, and find different things hidden within their repositories that shouldn't have been publicly posted, but accidentally were. Which is kind of funny because there's always a to-do phases with developers. They love to add hey, I'll come back and fix this. And guess what? They did that 3 years ago and it's still there. The other place that we're going to be looking is dark web exploration. Has a company already been hacked? So we can check dark web for credential dumps. If we can find an old password for an employee, there's a high chance that they're still using it on the corporate VPN. We can use programs like Tor to access these onion sites anonymously and then find the secrets available. And so there's a lot of things called credential stuffing. And that's because we are creatures of habits as humans. If we do one password in one spot and maybe their Gmail got hacked, they might be using the same password for their work email as well. One of my favorite places to start is the Whois records. Whois tells us who owns the domain and critically who hosts their DNS, so we know where their websites are. It also helps us find the registration and expiration dates, because a domain renewal phishing email works great if their email's about ready to expire. This happens quite often, and it's actually an easy way for people to steal other people's domains. I like to look at the public records filings. So Secretary of State filings are gold mines because you can find the names of the CEOs, CFOs, and basically critical anything for whaling attacks, because whoever fills out the paperwork, most of that paperwork for the business gets scanned in and is publicly accessible on the Secretary of State website. But it also gives us other things like office addresses for physical assessments. So if you don't know exactly where somebody works, well, they probably put it on the paperwork, so pretty easy to find. The next thing we'll be looking through is the DNS reconnaissance. Now, this is the phone book of the internet. DNS is definitely something that we want to look through because it will help us map out their infrastructure. We want to find every server by asking the DNS server for records. It's real easy for DNS to have too much information in it, and so we can use it to help identify the internal workings of a company. Because remember, DNS translates humans' names like Google to an IP address. So every DNS record is a signpost pointing to the target. We just need to read them. We do need to review our DNS records, so you do need to know the different types of records when it comes to DNS. For instance, you have an A record. This is an address record. It points to an IPv4 address. This is your primary target. Pretty much every host should have an A record within DNS. But there's also what we call an MX record. This is the mail exchange. It points to the email server. So it tells us what type of email they're using. Are they using Office 365, Google Workspace, or are they hosting their own on-premise Exchange servers? The easiest way to find that out is just by looking at their MX records. We might want to know what their name server is. This tells us who manages their zone. Maybe it's Cloudflare, AWS, GoDaddy, who knows. Who is their name server of choice? And then lastly, you're going to find text records. Now, this is often going to contain things like SPF data. It lists IP addresses that are allowed to send emails, which also gives us more points of contact for a list of trusted servers, because then we can mimic it and pretend to be them. All right, we might want to check their neighbors. So for DNS says, hey, where is google.com? And the reverse says gives you the IP address. So what if we find one server and check the IPs right next to it? Often we can find other assets, because when you buy an IP address from a provider, normally they give you sequential IP addresses. So for example, if the IP address is 172.16.20.1, well, maybe I want to check .2 or .3, .4, .5, .6, maybe all the way up to .8. Maybe I can find some other DNSs that are also from this company. And a lot of times what you'll do is you do a reverse DNS lookup. You say, hey, who owns 172.16.20.2? And it will return back, oh, that's vpn.company.com. And you're like, okay, now I found their VPN endpoint. This is an easy way for you to ask DNS for public records that may give you even more information of a company's infrastructure. Now, their company website itself, we can look at this while still being passive because it is publicly accessible and we're not doing anything different that any other customer isn't doing. We're just looking at the website itself. Now we can right click on a website and say view the source code, and we can see the technology stack. A lot of times people put comments in there too, and so definitely look at the page, the source code, and see if there's anything mixed in there, because this is one of the easiest hacks in the book. Again, when I say about developers being lazy, they love doing this even on their web pages. They'll put a developer comment, or they'll put other details, information like links to staging sites that might still be running, that are still within their network, that might be vulnerable, that the public website might not be, but their dev site might be vulnerable. Okay, so definitely take a look at the source code. Now we do want to fingerprint to know what software is running. Is it a WordPress site, Apache, IIS? Now browser extensions like WAP, Analyzer, and Built With do this instantly. The win is we can identify if they're running like an old website like a WordPress 4.0. We can then look up CVEs for that specific version. We can find the weaknesses right off the bat by using passive reconnaissance before we even start getting into active reconnaissance. Now there is a tool called the Wayback Machine. This is the Internet Archive, archive.org. It's the archive that never forgets. So just like Google indexes web pages, archive.org does the same thing, but they do it with web pages themselves. They'll give you like a snapshot of the web page in time. Now, though, what's really cool about this is we can look for old pages they've deleted, like old team pages with employee names or old PDF reports that they thought were gone, but they might have been archived on archive.org. So it's another way that we can go find information that maybe it was leaked in the past and they've covered the hole, but did archive.org pick it up before it got closed? It's hard to tell, but we can find definitely some sensitive informations in there. Now, we can look at metadata. Files like PDFs, JPEGs, they always have hidden metadata. And so we can use a tool called EXIF tool, and that's another tool that they're going to ask you about on the pen test. EXIF tool, which is a metadata tool. Highly recommend knowing how to use this tool because it can reveal different things like author names, exact version of Office that created it. And whenever you take a picture with your cell phone, a lot of times it will even mark the GPS coordinates from where it was taken. And so we can find a lot of information with the EXIF tool. Make sure that you know what that tool is. Download it. It's free. Let's play with it. All right. Every SSL certificate is public, so we can search logs like cert.sh. This is the best way for us to find subdomains. Even if a server is private, if they got a SSL cert for it, it's in the log. So all certs are public records, so if they got a cert for it, we could probably find it, which is fun. And then, so we can gather a massive amount of intel, employees, technology, IP addresses, subdomains, applications, without ever touching the target, the client. And so we do need to make sure that we understand how passive reconnaissance is used, and it is a bit of an art. It really is. It's pretty fun because it's one of those things that anyone can do from anywhere, sitting on the couch watching TV, and you can be reconnaissance a company without really much effort. All right, so recon itself is done. We're going to wrap up our map. In the next chapter, we'll be talking a little bit about active reconnaissance. So hopefully that this made a little bit of sense for you guys. Again, if you need some review, definitely go back through there. Just know the different steps of reconnaissance, the different tools that you can use, like WHOIS and DNS and the SSL certificates. Make sure that you recognize that. Really know your DNS record types because it's going to help you throughout your entire career as well, not just for the Pentest Plus. And then know why the Wayback Machine is useful. And then I'll leave it with this, and I'll just say, for your guys' knowledge, it is GIF, not JIF, because I'm not a peanut butter. All right, I'll see you later.